Friends, so in last class we were discussing about the ecosystem and the general idea of ecosystem I'm given. Now the same thing we are continuing because ecosystem plays very important role. One of the example, if you clearly study, it will become very easy for you to remember ecosystem of any part. Now, here first we'll go to whiteboard and we'll see what is ecosystem. Yesterday, you discussed what is ecosystem. Today, we'll take one of the example, pond as an ecosystem or pond ecosystem. Now, in this pond ecosystem, first schematic representation or just a diagrammatic representation. I'm drawing one of the figure here. And I'm calling it as a pond. So, this is the water level. Now, you are knowing the different parts, 4 parts of ecosystem, that is abiotic factors, producers, consumers, and decomposers. So here we'll try to solve factors or parts and we'll see how the pond ecosystem functions. Now, what is ecosystem? Ecosystem is a system in a particular area where biotic and abiotic factors, they are interacting with each other. Here, the particular area is a pond. Okay, so pond is an example here. What is happening? Here there will be a sun. Sun is producing a radiant energy, that is sunlight. So sunlight falls on the pond. Here the pond is containing the planktons and other green plants. So say for example, here floating plants you are observing. Say for this is a pistia. They are freely floating pistia. Then you can take another example of azolla. Then you can take an example of ecornia. These are few examples I am given. They are freely floating on the surface of the water. These are the green plants. They are undergoing photosynthesis. What examples are taken? Pistia, azolla, ecornia, and so on. And now some of the other plants are there. These are freely floating. Some of them, they are totally submerged inside the water. So I am just changing the color. So see, some of the plants, they are submerged and also they are ejected out of the area. Such a type of plants you are observing, and we are calling it as best example limnophila and heterophila. So, limnophila and heterophila is the best example for this. In the same way, nymphia you can take, lotus you can take, okay. So, these are submerged but freely floating on the surface of water. But here, half is submerged and half is coming out of the water. When you are observing the leaves, leaf structure is also different. The broader leaves are observed above the water surface area, and the leaves which you are observing inside the water, they are thin hair-like. So the double name is given here, limnophila, heterophila. So, and some of the plants, they are on the surface and they are submerged. Okay, here the best example is the lotus. You may take an example of lotus here. The flower comes out, leaf is on the surface of water and it is rooted inside the ground. So, in this way, the lotus plant here observed. And some of the plants you can take, they are totally submerged in the water. Say, again, I am changing color here. Just see the plants which are growing inside the water. Here, you can take an example of Chiara, Hydrilla, and so on. So here, the Chiara and Hydrilla I am taken as an examples. Now these plants, they are totally submerged inside the water. They are below the water surface. And so many other plants also you can see. Few examples I told here. But here, all these plants, they are utilizing radiant energy, sunlight. Then the radiant energy is converted into a chemical energy, that is, it is forming a carbohydrates. So plants are undergoing photosynthesis and they are manufacturing food material. And that food material is available to others. So all plants, we are calling them as autotrophs. All plants are autotrophs. So you observe autotrophs. Now comes the second point. Here, the abiotic factor. One by one factors you see. First one is abiotic factor or abiotic part. Then comes producers. Then comes consumers. Then decomposers. So these four factors we have to observe. First, abiotic factor, what we observe here, sunlight, temperature, then pH of the water, so the pressure, and so on, carbon dioxide, water, everything, it is included, abiotic factor. Now, producers, the different kinds of plants I call them as autotrophs here. So, these are the producers. Now comes the consumers. Consumers in the sense, the organisms you have to see. Now, the consumers here, what I am saying, first are herbivores. Herbivores. The herbivores here, we can see the small insects which are moving along with the water current. And we are calling them as the zooplanktons. Here, some of the plant materials also you can see, we are calling them as phytoplanktons. So, phytoplanktons and the insects, we are calling them as zooplanktons. The zooplanktons, one food chain will take. The zooplanktons, they are eating phytoplankton. So, phytoplankton, then the phytoplankton is eaten by zooplankton. That is the small insects, I said. Small insects. So, the small insects, they are becoming a primary consumers. So, we are also calling here as, I'll just change the color, primary consumers. Primary consumers are becoming herbivores because they are eating only plants, so we are calling them as herbivores. So we call them as primary consumers. Then in next step, it goes to secondary consumers. Secondary consumers, we are including small fishes. Then small fish, fish larvae and tadpoles, so on. So they are becoming secondary consumers. Then comes the tertiary consumer. The tertiary consumers, primary, secondary, tertiary consumers. Tertiary consumers, we are including larger fishes. Larger fishes, we are considering them as tertiary consumers and we are calling them as carnivores. So, tertiary consumers are called as carnivores. Now here, phytoplanktons, plants are the producers are eaten by primary consumers are eaten by secondary consumers are eaten by tertiary consumers, here small fishes you are including in secondary consumer, but tertiary consumer, the big whales, sharks, all these things are included in this. But the big whale and sharks are not eaten by other predators. So as a result, they die. When they die, their whole body it settles at the bottom. Now, when whole body is settling at the bottom, that time the complex body is broken down into small, simpler abiotic factors, abiotic substances. And they are added to the nature. In the pond, they are added to the water. So, we are calling them as the decomposers. So, the decomposers are becoming the last level. Here, bacteria and fungi, we are taking as example. Bacteria and fungi. So, in this way, the decomposers you are observing. So, abiotic factor is right, producers is right, consumers in this primary, secondary and tertiary consumers you observe. After their death, all the producer and consumers they are dying, their body is settling down. That time the bacteria and fungi they are acting on the body and body is again added to the soil. So those you are calling them as decomposers. So any ecosystem, friends, any ecosystem you take, in those ecosystems, these are the four important parts what you are observing. Okay, so in this way, the energy flows from the sun to the plants, from the plants to the primary consumer, from primary to secondary consumer, from secondary to tertiary consumer. Finally, it is again added to the nature with the help of decomposer. So in this way, you are observing one of the example, that is the pond ecosystem. So friends, we'll go to our questions now. We'll go back to the slide. We'll continue with it. So, thank you very much.